Sometimes moving on feels worse than staying. Not because the relationship was good, not because the person was right, but because leaving forces you to face a question you never wanted to answer. Who are you without the story? And that's what we'll uncover today. Because by the end of this video, you may realize that what you're afraid of losing isn't them. Welcome to the inner room. Let's go deeper. Most people think relationships change their lives. They do, but not in the way we imagine. Because slowly, quietly, they start changing our identity. Not all at once, in small ways. You start sending them things you would never send anyone else. You create routines, inside jokes, future plans, tiny habits. And eventually, without realizing it, they become part of how you experience yourself. Not just your life, yourself. That's why some breakups feel strange. You wake up one day and realize you don't only miss the person, you miss the version of you that existed around them. And that's a very different loss. At first, people think the pain comes from what was taken away. But often, the pain comes from what was left behind. The space, the silence, the hours that suddenly belong to nobody. Because when something occupies your mind for long enough, it becomes furniture. You stop noticing it's there. Until one day, it's gone. And now every room feels different. Not because the room changed, because your attention has nowhere to go. And that's why some people rush into distractions. New relationships, endless scrolling, constant noise. Not because they're healing, because they're trying to avoid meeting themselves. But here's where everything changes. Maybe the hardest part of moving on is not losing the person. Maybe it's losing the narrative. Think about it. For months, maybe years, there was a story running in the background. What if they come back? What if things change? What if this still works? What if there's one more conversation? One more chance? One more ending? And whether you realized it or not, that story gave your mind a direction, a mission, a place to return to. Then one day, you finally let go. And suddenly, the story disappears, which creates a terrifying question. If I'm not waiting anymore, who am I now? Most people think healing means returning to who they were before, but that's impossible because that person no longer exists. You have seen things they hadn't seen, felt things they hadn't felt, lost things they hadn't lost. So healing isn't going backward. It's becoming someone new. And that's uncomfortable because the human mind prefers a painful identity over an unknown one. At least pain is familiar. At least the old story is familiar. But eventually, something shifts. You stop measuring your life against what could have been. You stop organizing your future around someone who isn't there. You stop asking, what happened to us? And start asking, what happens to me now? And that's the moment everything begins to change. Not because the pain disappears, but because your life finally becomes bigger than the pain. This is the work of the inner room. Not to tell you who you are, but to help you notice the stories that have been quietly shaping your life. And maybe the version of you you're trying so hard to get back to was never meant to stay. If this made you stop and think, don't scroll past it. Subscribe and answer this in the comments. If the story ended today, who would you become next? Because this is what we do here. We open the rooms most people avoid. I'll see you in the next room.